Everyone keeps asking me, what are house prices going to do this spring? And it's not as simple as you might think. Today, we're going to dive into exactly what's happening in Greater Sudbury, what the media isn't telling you, and how this spring might surprise both buyers and sellers. So before we can get into what's going to happen in the future, we need to kind of understand what is happening right now. When you look at the Sudbury Real Estate Board, it goes basically from French River up to Dowling, from Marks Day all the way over to Manitoulin Island, including the whole island. So the average price for the whole board, that whole area, is $458,000 right now. Now, when you bring that down to the city proper, or let's say Greater Sudbury with some of the outlying areas, that boosts up to $506,000. And obviously that's just an average between all of the municipalities in Greater Sudbury, but obviously South End, New Sudbury are the most expensive, with the outlying areas being a little bit underneath those, about $15,000 to $20,000 less. Now, one thing we've heard about many times over, especially in the last few years, is the inventory shortage. There's just not enough houses to sell the buyers that are looking. And right now in Sudbury, we have 340 houses to sell all across the real estate board. And again, that's from Marks Day all the way to Manitoulin, from Dowling to French River. And reducing that down to the city of Sudbury proper, there's only 97 houses available to purchase right now. Another thing that's affecting the real estate market right now are interest rates, obviously. The policy rate being at 2.75 right now, meaning the 5-year fixed, it hovers anywhere to the high threes. So the lowest I've seen in the last few weeks was 3.79, but the majority of people are getting 3.99. And variable rates with many of the big five banks surround that 4.5%. Now, when you're reading or watching the news, the interest rates are all over mainstream media. With more and more tariff threats coming daily, it seems like the interest rates are going to keep falling, and chances are they will. But is that good for the consumer? Short term, yes. Long term, definitely not. Right now in Greater Sudbury, obviously, like I just mentioned, average prices are hovering around that $500,000 mark. If interest rates come down to where they think they might come down, the buyer pool is going to explode again, but I don't think inventory is going to go anywhere. So same issue that we had throughout COVID, lots of buyers, not enough houses to sell, prices are going to skyrocket again, and they're already getting to unaffordable highs. Some segments in the market are slower than others, and those would be the higher priced homes, $700,000 and above. Obviously, it's just an affordability issue. The higher the priced home, there's less people that can afford that home. Now, out of the 300 houses that are for sale in Sudbury right now, and that's the whole Sudbury Real Estate Board, 110 of those houses are in that higher priced range. So obviously less competition in that range. There's more houses on the market. There's more to choose from, meaning the house prices are a little bit lower and there's some good deals out there. This is good news if you're a move-up buyer. Selling high, and especially in the lower ranges, and buying that above $700,000 range seems like it could be a good idea. Now back to interest rates for a second. With 7 consecutive drops in interest rates from the middle of 2024, we're seeing, it seems like we have a low interest rate right now. But if you compare it over the last 10 years in this graph right here, then you'll see that we're still a little bit higher than we were even 10 years ago. But like we were just talking about, tariff threats will continue to drive that down to stimulate the economy. Now, lots of people are talking about the immigration trends and the migration trends in Greater Sudbury and obviously all across the country. But one thing that I think is a bigger issue than the people coming in is the people that are moving around the city. Now, everybody knows there's a life cycle in real estate, which starts with the first-time home buyer, then they come around here, then they move up, they buy their dream home, and then after the dream home, they either downsize or they move into a retirement home. But I think something even bigger than the migration trends are the people in Greater Sudbury that have lived here for many, many years. It's called the life cycle of real estate. So it starts up here with the first-time home buyer. Then it comes down here, the move-up buyer buys the dream home, they downsize, and then usually they either pass away or move into a retirement home. That's the life cycle. Through COVID, we were missing this piece here, especially with all the scares in the retirement homes. People really didn't want to move out. So they stayed in their homes. They're continuing to stay in their homes currently. They really didn't want to move out of their homes to go to a retirement home and be locked down. Now, that same scare is still happening today, and we see lots and lots of people just staying in their homes until they pass or until they have to leave, which isn't necessarily good for the first-time buyer, because that correlation at the top, first-time buyer usually buys that retirement home. And that's leading to a ton of estate sales in this current market. The next issue is seller psychology. Why are these people staying in their homes as long as they are? Obviously, we just talked about it, but why are the people living in smaller homes not moving up and vice versa? Why are people not downsizing? Why are people just not moving in general? I feel like a lot of sellers are just on the fence. They might be locked into some low interest rates. They might not want to get rid of that to move into a bigger house, to have a bigger payment, and maybe that's a smart financial decision. And some might have bought throughout COVID, might have bought at a higher price, and are unsure whether they can get out of that house in a positive equity situation. And I'm here to tell you that you can. More than likely, what you purchased for in that time frame throughout COVID when rates were so low, you can get that price now. We're just under the average price, or the peak where the average price was in 2022 when it hit that peak, which was just over $500,000 in Sudbury. We're very close, if not past that, in most market segments. Let's bring this back to spring-focused buying and selling. What does history tell us? You can see by this graph that spring is historically the best time to sell, usually in April. And you can see when you're looking at all the peaks throughout this graph, you can see that the highest peaks in the correlating year are usually April or May. Obviously, that does have other issues, especially when you're thinking of selling those houses, like where and what you're going to buy. But if you have the stomach or the resources to sell in the spring and then have an interim place to stay, this could be hugely beneficial to those that want to buy in the summer or can buy in the summer. Now, the opposite is also true. If you have the stomach to purchase your new house in January or in February when the market is a little bit slower, and you can wait out whether it's a long closing date or you just have the extra equity that you can access until the spring, selling your house in the spring is always going to bring the highest price. Now, there's more than just interest rates and inventory that go into house prices. Local economic factors like our mining sector, our education sector, and many more sectors that we have here in Sudbury really dictate what's going to happen in the market. When people are bountifully employed, they have more money to spend, and chances are they're going to buy bigger houses, more toys, and other things. And speaking on economic factors, if you've seen any of my videos, I'm really harping on this, but the Chamber of Commerce came out recently, about a month ago, saying that Sudbury is actually out of the top 41 cities in Canada. We are the most diverse. Therefore, we are best protected from the tariff threats from our neighbors to the south. Now, are we seeing a mini boom right now? Yes, we are. In the last 2 months in Sudbury, the market has gone crazy again. House prices are up, inventory is down, just like we've talked about throughout this video and many other videos. Will there be a correction? There will always be a correction. So when you're purchasing your properties, make sure it's a long-term process. You're not flipping in and out, especially if it's your own matrimonial home or your own family home. I think it's very important to work with realtors that know the economic state, they know what can happen, and guide you on that advice as well. Now, what does this mean for buyers and sellers? Obviously, for buyers, this means if you're purchasing under $700,000, expect competition. Now, there's plenty of ways to mitigate the liabilities when purchasing a home in a bidding war, and that's to do, an early inspection, work with professionals, whether it's the bank or a real estate agent or your lawyer. Make sure that everybody has your best interest in mind. Sellers, you really are in the driver's seat, whether it's neglecting to paint, cover patches. Buyers right now will overlook most things about the houses. Do you have to do staging? No, you do not. Do you have to paint the walls before you put it on the market? No, you do not. Do you have to do a bunch of curb appeal before you put it on the market? No, you do not. Are those still important? Extremely, extremely important to do those things to even get you higher value for your house and therefore more money to put in your next house. But is it absolutely essential? No, it's not. If you're thinking about buying, selling, or investing this spring, get informed now. And obviously you're doing that because you're watching this video, so I appreciate you tuning in. If you ever have any questions, please drop me a DM or comment below. I'd be happy to have a conversation about anything that I talk about in this video or others.